Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This video is about laboratory diagnosis of cancer. These are the references for this video. As we have seen earlier in the video of the clinical aspect of the neoplasia, that the neoplasia have got diverse clinical presentation, and this clinical presentation is dependent on the stage and grade of the disease. Also, some tumors are associated with elaboration or secretion of some biochemical markers. So there are many methods to diagnose cancer in the laboratory. These are the cytologic methods, when you study the cell of the body or cell of the tumor, suspected tumor. That are the cytologic methods. Then histopathology method, immunohistochemical staining or immunohistochemistry. Then there are molecular and cytogenetic diagnosis of the tumor, which is important especially in some undifferentiated tumor and mandatory for blood malignancies. Then flow cytometry, there are some tumor markers, and in undifferentiated tumor or in some special cases electron microscopy is also used. The histologic and cytologic methods are used to label a tumor as benign or malignant. It is sometimes very difficult to label a lesion as benign or malignant because of various dubious characteristics, such as the presence of atypical mitosis or necrosis, but still limitation to some area, such as happen in the soft tissue tumors, which have got variety of condition which are locally infiltrative but do not metastasize to the distant organ, but they exhibit most of the features of the anaplasia, and there is always a gray zone in some of the tumors to differentiate between benign and malignant. So the role of the clinician and the pathologist to facilitate the correct diagnosis is very important. There should be a collaboration between both of them and proper communication of the clinical data that is available for the pathological diagnosis. The radiation changes sometimes in the skin or mucosa, they mimic cancer, or section from a healing fracture can mimic the presence of an osteosarcoma. The laboratory evaluation of the lesion should be adequate, representative of the lesion, and it should be properly preserved. Here you can see this orange is cut through various levels and angles, and each one of them is giving a different picture. So a three-dimensional view or a holistic approach for the lesion should be communicated to the clinician by the pathologist, and it's duty of the clinician to communicate all the available data, and there is no role to play gimmicks or to hide any information related with the patient's lesion. There are several sampling approaches for these histologic and cytologic methods. Some are the excisional or biopsy, or needle aspiration, or cytologic smear formation. The excised tissue should not only be the adequate and representative, but it should be sent with a proper fixative also, as if it is not properly fixed in the prescribed fixative, it will lead to no diagnosis, and the cytologic or histologic detail or diagnosis will be useless for the determination of the characteristics of the lesion. For histologic and cytologic studies, a proper area should be selected for biopsy. The biopsy is a term that is derived from the bio and opsis, that means vision of the life. The periphery may not be representative of the lesion, and the center can be necrotic in some of the lesion. The excised tissue should be preserved immediately in proper fixative. The fixative is usually used as 10% neutral buffered formalin, and the amount of this fixative should be 1:10 proportion of the tissue. The tissue for other studies should be allocated, such as cytogenetic studies, flow cytometric study, and molecular diagnostics. The frozen section is another technique that is used to evaluate the tissue within minutes, and it is done adjacent to or near operative theatre, where this tissue is studied, is processed and cut under the negative temperature and extremely cold temperature, and the sections are immediately processed and studied and determine the nature of the mass lesion, evaluating the margin of the excised cancer, and making decision about additional. The fine needle aspiration cytology is another widely used approach. It involves the aspiration of the cell through a small bone needle, and these are studied under the microscope of the so these steps in the fine needle aspiration cytology are palpation of the lesion, aspiration, then smear preparation, fixation of that smear, staining of that smear, and finally the microscopy. So fine needle aspiration is done on the palpable lesion, and the palpable lesion are usually present in breast, thyroid, and lymph node or soft tissue, if any. So sometimes the lesion is situated deeply and is not accessible or can be palpated. So ultrasound imaging guidance or technique is helpful for to approach these lesions. This ultrasound guided by fine needle aspiration is less invasive and more rapidly performed than needle biopsy. It also decreases the surgery and decreases the burden of surgery and risks which are associated with the surgery. There can be sampling errors associated with this imaging guided fine needle aspiration or image guided biopsy. Cytologic smear use is another method to study the cellular detail. This is used widely to screen for CS cervix and its precursor lesion. This smear formation is suitable for evaluation of any form of suspected malignancy in which tumor cells are shed into fluid or are easily accessible. The type of specimen for which cytologic smear is used are urine, CSF, pleural effusion, and bronchial washes. The shed cell can be evaluated by morphology, so their origin can be determined, or the individual cells or clump of the cells are studied by this method. There is no supporting evidence of the loss of orientation or another, or there cannot be any comment made on the evidence of invasion. The cytologic smear only permit differentiation among normal cell, dysplastic cell, and malignant cells. So in some cases it is difficult to determine the nature and tissue of origin of the differentiated tumor. That is the limitation of the cytological smear. and some specific tumor type are difficult to distinguish based on their morphological appearance alone, such as various acute leukemia and lymphomas. These limitations introduced the need for immunohistochemistry, flow cytometry, and molecular diagnostics. This photomicrograph is showing the cytology of cervical smear. On the left, there is a normal cervicovaginal smear that show large flattened squamous cells, and on the right, there is abnormal smear that show numerous cells that are pleomorphic, hyperchromatic, and there is some interspersed inflammatory infiltrate also. This photomicrograph is showing a lesion that is not showing any relation with the epithelial or mesenchymal tissue of origin, but there are large tumor giant cell, irregular cells, they are abnormal mitosis, and we cannot tell which one is the tissue of origin for these cells. So immunohistochemistry helps in these sort of the cases. Immunohistochemistry is used for the categorization of undifferentiated malignant tumor, determination of site of origin of metastatic tumor, and detection of molecules that have prognostic or therapeutic significance. For the categorization of undifferentiated malignant tumor, this is important because the H&E stain cannot distinguish between among the malignant undifferentiated tumor. The anaplastic carcinoma, lymphoma, melanoma, and sarcomas have got similar morphology but different treatment and prognosis. The solid tumor cells, they show intermediate filament characteristic of their cell of origin, and antibodies specific to the intermediate filament have proved to be of particular value in such cases, such as cytokeratin is present in epithelial cell, and these are carcinomas. Desmin is present in the cells of muscle origin. Hematologic malignancies, they show lack of cytoskeletal structure, and lineage specific membrane protein CD20, that is a marker for the B cell tumor, and transcription factor. This photomicrograph is showing the positivity for anti-cytokeratin immunoperoxidase stain that is present in tumor of epithelial cell origin. %30 of the cancers, they present with metastasis at the time of their diagnosis. The immunohistochemistry is used for the determination of the site of origin of the metastatic tumor. First, the clinical and radiological features are explored to find the primary site. If still the tumor origin is obscure, then immunohistochemistry is used through the detection of tissue-specific or organ-specific antigen in the biopsy specimen. Such as the prostate-specific antigen is used for prostate prostate secondaries, and to ascertain the primary, whether the primary is from thyroid or not, the thyroglobulin is used. Immunohistochemistry can also be used for the detection of molecules that have prognostic or therapeutic significance. One of these is the detection of hormone through immunohistochemistry, such as estrogen and progesterone receptors that are expressed in breast tumor cells, and they have got a prognostic and therapeutic value. If the breast tumors, they express estrogen and progesterone receptors. They are associated with better prognosis. Similarly, some protein products of oncogenes such as ERBB2 in breast cancer can also be detected by immunostaining. The product of ERB gene is HER2, and this HER2 it has got a poor prognosis, but if this HER2 is expressed on the tumor, that can be blocked by the activity of HER2 blocker. So this diagnostic immunohistochemistry can be of therapeutic value as well as of prognostic value. Similarly, these HER2 are the product of the ERB gene, and this ERB gene is amplified while expressing this HER2. So as an adjunct, the FISH or fluorescent in situ hybridization is also used. ALK protein is used to identify lung cancer and lymphomas, which express active ALK fusion protein, and this expression of the ALK protein, which is diagnosed through immunohistochemistry, is of therapeutic value because the patient will get the treatment of the blockers that inhibit the ALK tyrosine kinase. Flow cytometry is a technique that is used to detect and measure physical and chemical characteristic of a population of cell or particle. In this process, a sample that is usually a liquid and in which the cells or particles are suspended, they are injected to flow cytometer instrument, and then this sample is passed through a laser beam one by one, where the light scattered is characteristic of the cell, and then component cells are labeled with fluorescent dyes or markers, and light is absorbed and emitted in a band of wavelength. So cell counting, cell sorting, determination of the cell characteristic and function, detection of the microorganism, biomarker detection, protein engineering detection, and diagnosis of blood cancer all are done by the use of this flow cytometry. And this technique is usually, especially it is used to identify the cellular antigen that are expressed by liquid tumor, such as B cell or T cell, lymphomas, and leukemias and myeloid neoplasms. The flow cytometry has got some advantage over immunohistochemistry because multiple antigens are assessed simultaneously. Then circulating tumor cells are also detected by instruments that quantify and characterize the rare tumor cells such as carcinoma or melanoma that are freely circulating in the blood. And the device for the detection of circulating tumor cells rely on three-dimensional flow cells coated with antibodies that are specific for the tumor cells of interest, such as for the carcinoma cell, and these antibodies, they capture the rare tumor cells that are present in the blood, and this test has got a potential to early diagnosis of a tumor and gauge the risk of metastasis of the tumor if there is present or diagnosed, and it is a minimally invasive technique for assessment of the response of the tumor cells to the therapy. The use of the molecular diagnostics and cytogenetics is not a primary modality for the diagnosis of the cancer, but these molecular diagnostics are helpful in selected cases. PCR is a polymerase chain reaction that helps in the diagnosis of malignant neoplasm by evaluation of rearranged T cell receptor or immunoglobulin gene that allow distinction between monoclonal or polyclonal proliferations. If these are monoclonal proliferation, that is the neoplastic one, and polyclonal are the proliferative one. Fluorescent in situ hybridization is used for the detection of translocations, which are frequently seen in leukemias and lymphomas and some other cancers also. The diagnosis of sarcoma, that is the sarcoma are problem for pathologists always, and these sarcomas are characterized by the diagnosis or recognition of the translocation that is present in a specific type of the tumor, and this is done by the molecular technique, in part because the chromosomal preparation are often difficult to obtain from the solid tumors. For example, the round blue cell tumors are difficult to distinguish from each other. These round cell tumors have got a small blue cell in appearance like lymphocyte cells, and many areas of the body they exhibit the round blue cell tumor, such as the lymphoma, Ewing sarcoma, medulloblastoma, Oat cell tumor of the lung, and neuroblastoma. But if PCR shows that, or PCR or FISH shows that there is translocation present between 11 and 22 chromosome, it established the diagnosis of Ewing sarcoma. Then DNA microarrays are also used as a molecular technique, and both the tiling arrays or single nucleotide polymorphism are used. The tiling arrays cover entire human genome, while single nucleotide polymorphism arrays allow high resolution mapping of copy number changes, either the deletion or amplification of some areas. There is a specific cytogenetic abnormality for a specific type of. The use of the molecular diagnostic and cytogenetics are implicated in prognosis of malignant neoplasms also, because some of the tumors have got specific genetic alterations, and these genetic alterations may be associated with good prognosis or poor prognosis. Such as in neuroblastoma, the amplification of NMYC gene and deletion of the short arm of the chromosome 1 is associated with the poor prognosis. Similarly, in the oligodendrogliomas, the loss of short arm of chromosome 1 and long arm of chromosome 19, they respond well to the therapy and associated with good prognosis. Similarly, the additional EGF receptor amplification, it is associated with a bad prognosis. The molecular diagnostics are also used for the detection of minimal residual disease after the treatment of the patient with leukemia or lymphoma, and it's frequently used for the monitoring of the disease, such as the detection of BCR-ALB transcript by PCR give a measure to the residual leukemia cell in treated patient with CML, and this feature, the detection of minimal residual disease, which has proved valuable in acute leukemias, is also being evaluated in other neoplasms. The molecular and cytogenetic techniques are also used for the diagnosis of hereditary predisposition to the cancer because some of the germline mutation are associated with high risk of developing a specific type of the cancer, such as BRCA1, BRCA2 and RET proto-oncogene are associated with a specific type of the tumor. Then detection of these mutated alleles is helpful in devising an aggressive screening program and to consider the options for prophylactic surgery and also to counsel at-risk relatives. And this requires detection of a specific mutation or sequencing of entire gene. The molecular diagnostic and cytogenetics are also used to guide therapy with oncoprotein directed drugs. There are increasing number of chemotherapeutic agents that target oncoprotein that are produced specifically by a specific type of cell. The molecular identification of the genetic lesion that produce that specific oncoprotein is essential for optimal treatment of the patient, such as PML-RARA fusion gene is present in acute promyelocytic leukemia, BCR-ALB fusion gene in CML and AL, ERB mutation and ALK gene rearrangement in lung cancer, and BRAF mutation in melanoma. The molecular diagnostics are also used for identifying the mechanism of drug resistance. As we have seen earlier that there are some circulating tumor cells and also these cells are being attacked by the body immunity, so there is cell-free DNA that is also present and it is shed from dying tumor cell and it is present within the blood. So that gave the concept of liquid biopsies, and to detect both these, this is termed as liquid biopsy, and they basically give the clue to the presence of a specific driver mutation that create targetable oncoproteins such as in the lung cancer, and this test is usually done through sensitive PCR based approaches, and it is done on the blood because the circulating tumor cells and the DNA from these tumor cells, dying tumor cells, is present in the blood, and it is helpful because it avoids the need for the repeated biopsies from the tissue. So the use of the molecular diagnostic and cytogenetics is very important right from the diagnosis to the therapeutic and also in the development of the drug resistance. These are helpful in diagnosis of the malignant neoplasm, prognosis of the malignant neoplasm, detection of minimal residual disease, diagnosis of hereditary predisposition to the cancer, guiding therapy with oncoprotein directed drugs, and identifying the mechanism of drug resistance. There are many theories that were linked with the disease development in a person. Earlier it was considered that the onset of a disease is due to the sins committed by that particular person or the affected person. Later it was postulated that the body is composed of four fluids and the disease is due to imbalance between these four fluids. And later in 1960 and 1970 the revelation of the DNA molecule and later its double helical structure made advancement in the science, and scientists they started linking the disease with the changes in the DNA. The success of the Human Genome Project led to the individual gene analysis in the recent past. Then there was development of omic technologies, such as these omic technologies resulted in a wider spectrum and spectrum analysis of the whole genome, such as the rapid DNA sequence of the entire genome. The epigenome is the process of assessing the epigenetic modification genome wide. There is transcriptome, that is to quantify all of the RNA expressed in cell population. Then there is the proteome, that is the measurement of many proteins simultaneously, and the metabolome, that is to take a snapshot of all the cells metabolite. RNA sequencing was also attempted, but RNA are prone to degradation and its sequencing is not very much successful. The DNA is sequencing is advantageous because it can be done on routinely fixed and processed tissues such as paraffin embedded formalin fixed tissues. These revelation and these advancements, they led to the sequencing and cataloging of all the human cancers. That was by the National Cancer Institute, and this project is named as the Cancer Genome Atlas. This is the website of the National Cancer Institute, which has got every information about the National Cancer Genome Atlas program with molecular profiling of almost all the tumors that were studied. Sarcos plot is the way to produce or to show the data of a particular tumor, and it provides a snapshot of all the genetic alteration that exist in that particular tumor type. This is a Sarcos plot that is showing the genetic alteration that are present in lung cancer of a male patient. Innermost circle, there is area designated as A, and this is showing the structural rearrangement in the chromosome. The blue lines denote the intrachromosomal rearrangement, while the red lines are showing the interchromosomal rearrangement. The area B, that is the second from inner circle, is the region of loss of heterozygosity and allelic imbalance, and it shows the overrepresentation of one allelic versus the second. It is green in color. The C area is showing the copy number profiles, and the red are denoting the copy number losses, and blue are for copy gains. The point mutations are in the area D, and these are the red dots. The next generation DNA sequencing is done for research purpose, while the targeted sequencing is done for routine diagnostic procedure. These tests cover the exon of several hundred key genes at sufficient depth to detect any mutation that is present in as few as 5% of the tumor cells, and the goal is to identify therapeutically actionable genetic lesion. Such approaches are particularly applicable to the tumors such as lung carcinoma, which are genetically diverse and require a personalized approach if targeted therapy is to succeed. Other clinically useful information is obtained, however. For example, the observed pattern of mutation, both the passenger and driver mutation, can be used to identify the mutational signature that is associated with mismatch repair defect, which is an indication for the treatment with immune checkpoint inhibitors regardless of the cancer type. The acute leukemia, they respond well to the chemotherapy, but if acute leukemias are associated with TP53 mutation, they have got a very good prognosis and they do not respond well to the chemotherapy. So these targeted sequencing can be helpful to see other additional mutations. The RNA levels are also used and the measurement of the RNA levels is routine for the breast cancer, and additional tests are being developed. The chimeric RNA tests are also under development. More and more recognition of these molecular targets for the chemotherapeutic agent, the targeted chemotherapeutic agent, are changing the classification schema from the anatomy toward the molecular target, such as the mutated KIT, mutated HER2, mutated EGFR, mutated BRAF, and mutated PI3K. Instead of using the term C of the lung, C of the breast, prostate, colon, or brain. Histologically different cancer may have same genetic mutation. For example, BRAF mutation, that is the gain of function mutation in the serine threonine kinase BRAF pathway, that is a component of RAS signaling pathway, is seen in various tumors such as hairy cell leukemia, melanoma, colonic carcinoma, Langerhans cell histiocytosis, and papillary carcinoma of the thyroid. And together these all these tumors are termed as BRAFomas due to presence of same genetic mutation. And all these BRAFomas they are candidate for treatment with a BRAF inhibitor, but the effectiveness of BRAF inhibitor is different among all of these histological subtypes, and the reason for this is unknown. Such as the hairy cell leukemia, which contain the same BRAF gain of function mutation, has got a sustained response, while the melanoma with the similar mutation, they have got a transient response. The similar mutation containing colonic carcinomas, they respond very little to the BRAF inhibitors. The tumor markers are substances that are proteins and produced by the cancer tissue itself or sometime by the body in response to the cancer. They have got diagnostic and therapeutic value, and they also are important in the recurrence of a tumor. The prostate specific antigen is the tumor marker that is elevated in prostatic adenocarcinoma and benign prostatic hyperplasia. The carcinoembryonic antigen is a tumor marker for colon, pancreas, stomach, and breast. Alpha fetoprotein or AFP is elevated in hepatocellular carcinoma, yolk sac tumor, and occasionally teratocarcinomas and embryonal cell carcinomas. Human chorionic gonadotropin or HCG, beta HCG, is elevated in testicular tumors, while the CA125 is elevated in ovarian tumors. Monoclonal immunoglobulins are elevated in multiple myeloma and other secretory plasma cell tumors. Early detection of cancer is associated with a good prognosis, and tumor marker aid in this early detection of the cancer. They can be divided into hormones, oncofetal antigen, lineage-specific protein, mucin and other glycoprotein, and cell-free DNA markers. And this table is showing various tumor markers that are elevated in a specific type of the tumor.